If you foresee your future wouldn't be so beautiful, but instead might be filled with pain, would you still choose to lead the same life? In the film Arrival, which was directed by Denis Villeneuve in 2016, the main character Louis faces exactly this kind of dilemma. Louis is a linguist, and she is invited to a military base to decipher an alien language. Here, she also works with other scientists, including a physicist named Ian. One day, Louis successfully decodes the alien's language, and through this non-linear language, she begins to see her own future. She will marry Ian, and they will have a lovely daughter, but later they will get divorced due to personality differences, and their daughter will die at a young age. The whole middle part of the film shows Louis' future life, which appears painful and full of sorrow. However, at the very end of the film, the story returns to the present. Louis is still single. As the deciphering work is finished, all scientists prepare to go back home. When they are leaving, Ian confesses his love to Louis and asks if she would like to spend her life with him. Louis says yes, and the film ends. It means even though Louis has known her future will be imperfect and marked by grief, she still chooses to follow that path and experience it all again. So my question is, if you're Louis, would you change your fate or not? To be honest, ever since I first watched this film at 10 years old, I've always found it difficult to answer this question. So this time, I decided to lead the answer to the interviews, to the questionnaire, and to the statistics, to let probability speak for it. If you're Louis, would you change your fate or not?
Yes, I think I'll change my fate.
I would like to change the fate.
Yes, I will.
I would definitely choose not to accept it.
Yes, it's really hard to say whether it's going to change my fate.
In my opinion, I won't.
I still wouldn't choose to change my current state of life.
I would choose to continue with fate.
Most preferably, I would not choose to get away from the fate.
Basically, everything we're doing right now is to forestall some possible misfortune to fall on us, even though we don't know for sure. But now that we do know something that will happen, I'll do everything I can to stop it from happening.
Regarding my future child, I would say she's my flesh and blood, so I don't really want her to suffer from any torment and pain. So I would like to change the fate. But, if she's the person who would like to enjoy in extreme sports, who is very adventurous, then I respect her destiny.
Because even though I get a short term of happiness after I get married, it will disappear soon because me and my husband get divorced. And I don't think it's a solid or long-term happiness, and it is caused by my decision. And also, when it comes to our child, she will die, as I know. So this is also because of my decision to get married to my husband. And I don't want to hurt her, and I want to avoid this sad thing. Also, I think the happiness I gain from the getting married decision is kind of not solid and short terms. Nobody, including me, my husband, and my child, are gaining any benefits or any happiness, like true happiness, from this. So I will change my destiny, and maybe anything good will happen.
So my first reason is that most of my enjoyment in my life comes from uncertainty. You'll never know what you're met until you really step on that random journey. And my second reason is that here I have a given fate, but I don't know whether it will come true for sure, or I can change it. So there are two possibilities. And for me, actually, I would try to change it, because here comes the scene that maybe I will sit on my chair or lie in my bed with no ability to change anything. Then I think if I didn't try to change my fate, and I just simply accept my tragedy life, then I will certainly be regret why I didn't do anything for my future, why I didn't even try it, even if it's for sure, but at least I've tried. Then at the end of my life, I would be definitely more feel better.
It's really hard to say whether it's going to change my fate, but at least it's going to make some changes because we have already known it's a very bad decision and what can be worse.
Because I think that's the destiny. If you change the decision, it might cause a ripple effect that lead to a different consequence, which may even worse than the previous one. Yeah.
If I am too reliant on the result of the prediction of what my future will be like, if I keep on doing like this, and I will be swayed by considerations of gains and loss because I know the future. If the future is filled with misery, like I will divorce with my husband, I will lose my child, I will constantly living in a state of anxiety and suspense because I don't know what should I do. And because of that, I wouldn't seize the current moment, and I wouldn't cherish the happiness I have now. Because now I have someone I love, I have my dreams, I have my job. And another reason is that I think future is filled with twists and turns. There are so many opportunities, and there are so many things that we cannot predict beforehand. A single decision would change directly the future, the path, and which path will I go. So the only thing I can do is just to seize the current moment and to enjoy the present because today is a present and this is my decision.
Because I am someone who personally believes in fate and destiny in a weird way. So I feel like just knowing that, I feel like I would still pursue it, even despite bringing in the girl into the world. I feel like, I guess my argument for that would be, well, she still got to experience life in a way, even though it did end tragically, and so did my path. But still, I think I would still choose fate.
And Louise would still get married and have that daughter and go through all the progress. Fundamentally, I would give a rationale due to the circular logic and the consequences in the world she saw from the alien words. Since that, I would assume all the way she responded to the world is with the integration of the alien world logic, where consequences are in a loop and we cannot break away from that. Otherwise, this word, the character, and the whole life would be broken apart. And maybe the general pattern she would experience is to keep the topology of the words and the characters as they were and try to enrich their strokes. And this is the same for the words, the characters, and also her life decisions.
In addition to interviews, because I just interviewed some people at my age and around me, the sample was too narrow, so I also posted my question on my 3 different social media accounts. I searched all the threads related to the film Arrival and left my question for the authors. If I saw someone who had commented on Arrival before, I also messaged them with my question. After 1 week of effort, I finally gathered 77 valid answers along with their reasons. To make it easier for people to answer, I designed the question with 2 options. A. Accept fate, say yes to Ian, and face the difficulties together. B. Decide to change fate, for example, choosing to stay single and avoiding the possibility of the daughter suffering in the future. The results show that 68% of people chose A, 31% chose B, and 1% really hard to make a decision. How does this compare with what you expected? Let's take a moment to summarize. Before conducting the survey, I made a few assumptions about the possible reasons people might give. First, life is simply like this. Fate is hard to defy. We are merely mortals, so it is what it is. Second, quantum interference. Uncertainty at a quantum level. This means that if our actions change the future we have seen, the future we saw was actually a false one. So the idea of foreseeing the future wouldn't hold. Or, even if we do nothing to change it, the very fact that we know the future has already interfered with it. Third, enjoy the present moment. Life is meant to be enjoyed, no need to overthink everything. Fourth, fight against destiny. As the protagonists of our own lives, we should bravely try to change our fate and turn bad outcomes into good ones whenever possible. However, after conducting the survey, I received a great amount of feedbacks and analysis from people online. Some respondents even wrote me more than 1,000 words simply because they love Arrival. I'm deeply grateful to them. I also encountered several reasons that I hadn't thought of before, such as, first, the alien's circular writing symbolizes the cycle and non-linearity of life. As one interviewee mentioned earlier, the alien language already gives us the answer. Even though the strokes of each symbol vary greatly, the overall shape is always a circle. This implies that even if we make small adjustments after seeing the future, the ending remains the same in the vast, powerful current of fate. Second, cherish the beautiful parts of life. Since Louis and Ian get together out of genuine love and admiration, and since they deeply love their daughter, it means Louis' future also contains beauty and love. It's not all sorrow. Why not cherish the beautiful moments they will share? Third, everyone will eventually die. No matter what we choose, death is inevitable. There is no absolute escape from it. Fourth, actively accept one's fate. Some believe that fate is meant to be accepted, and that the core task of life is to embrace destiny. What the film aims to teach, they argue, is that re-experiencing pain is part of understanding the meaning of life itself. Fifth, language shapes our way of thinking. Since alien language conveys a non-linear understanding of time, once Louis masters it, her mind is already accepting non-linear time and her daughter's death. In her cognition, the future exists as an objective fact, so the idea of changing the future is not valid. Sixth, the known is better than the unknown. Compared to choosing an entirely unknown path and fighting destiny, accepting familiar pain may feel more secure. What is the outcome of resisting fate turns out to be even more unbearable. In this way, choosing to accept fate immediately seems to be safer. These are kinds of reasons our ordinary people consider when facing such a dilemma. Among us, 68% choose to follow the path that fate has laid out, while 31% choose to change it. Yet Louise embraces her choice 100%. Does that mean she feels no pain? Does that mean she will never regret it? Next, I will draw on several scholarly sources to rationalize Louis' choice. Perhaps after watching them, you will understand the unwavering decision she makes. The first perspective is from psychological research on regret. King and Hicks argue that regret is not simply a painful emotion experience. Rather, the ability to contemplate what might have been is closely tied to psychological maturity. Mature individuals do not avoid regret, they integrate it into their life narrative, using it to deepen their understanding of meaning, purpose, and identity. This means that regret can coexist with well-being, especially when a person is capable of reflecting on painful possibilities without being overwhelmed by them. Applying this perspective to Arrival, Louis' choice becomes less about avoiding suffering and more about embracing a meaningful life in full. She does not choose her future because it is free of pain. She chooses it because she is capable of integrating both joy and heartbreak into a coherent sense of who she is. From this angle, her decision reflects maturity rather than resignation. A second perspective comes from a more recent research exploring how regret interacts with self-regulation. Sitzma et al. Argue that regret does not automatically lead to growth. In fact, for individuals who lack strong self-regulatory abilities, regret tends to turn into rumination, which lowers well-being. Regret contributes positively to life only when a person has emotion and cognitive skills to transform it into learning and acceptance. Seen through this lens, Louis' mastery of the alien language and her non-linear experience of time fundamentally transforms her relationship with regret. She does not fear future pain because she does not ruminate over alternative paths. Instead, she perceives the future as an objective, integrated whole. Her strong sense of self-regulation allows her to accept her daughter's eventual death without collapsing into despair. The overview effect was first proposed by space philosopher Frank White in 1987 in his book The Overview Effect: Space Exploration and Human Evolution. Drawing on interviews with astronauts, White observed that viewing Earth from orbit often triggers a profound cognitive and emotional shift. From the cosmic perspective, human-made boundaries, nations, borders, and even conflicts appear insignificant, while the planet itself emerges as a fragile and interconnected whole. The overview effect is therefore not just a visual experience, but a transformation in consciousness, a movement from individual concerns toward a larger, more integrated understanding of human existence. A similar shift occurs in Arrival. Once Louise learns the alien's language, she undergoes her own overview transformation, one that is temporal rather than spatial. Instead of seeing Earth from above, she sees her entire life from outside the constraints of linear time. Like astronauts who suddenly perceive humanity as a single whole, Louise perceives her past, present, and future as interconnected and inseparable. This expanded awareness doesn't remove pain or loss. Instead, it reframes them as inherent parts of a complete and meaningful life. In this sense, the overview effect provides a valuable conceptual lens for understanding how individuals rethink their choices and emotional priorities when they are confronted a broader, more integrated view of life. Another interesting theoretical framework is the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, developed by linguists Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lee Whorf in the early 20th century. This hypothesis proposes that structure of language shapes how its speakers perceive, interpret, and understand the world. Language, in this view, does not simply describe reality, but actively organizes experience and cognition. Well, the strongest version of this theory that language determines thought is widely disputed. The weaker form, known as linguistic relativity, is broadly accepted. It suggests that language influences patterns of thinking, including how people conceptualize time, causality, and possibility. From this perspective, Louise's choice becomes rational rather than paradoxical. Once she fully acquires the alien's language, her cognition is fundamentally reshaped. Her linguistic framework no longer supports a linear understanding of cause and effect, and the idea of changing the future loses its meaning within her cognitive system. So, after all these explorations, we can finally understand Louise's choice better. And you might be wondering, why bring in theories about regret, the overview effect, and the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis? The reason is actually very practical. In today's world, more and more young people feel unhappy with their current lives, regret their decisions, replay them over and over, and fantasize about starting again. You probably heard things like, if I could go back to being 8 years old, I'd definitely become an athlete. Deep down, what we are really longing for is a God will, the power to see everything in once and rewrite our story. That's why rebirth novels and time-reserved movies where protagonist changes fate with cheat code level advantages are so wildly popular. They build a utopia for the audience. But here's the real question. If you truly have Louise's ability to foresee the future, to reset, to choose again, can you honestly guarantee that your new life would make you happier and that you wouldn't regret it all over again or feel like turning into another dystopia? This is why understanding regret, the overview effect, and even Sapir-Whorf hypothesis actually matters. They remind us that well-being doesn't come from better conditions or extra chances. It comes from how we think, how we interpret our lives, and how we relate to time, love, loss, and choice. Real peace doesn't come from imagine that the road not taken must have been better. It comes from seeing life as a whole, from learning to let joy and sorrow flow through us simultaneously without constantly fighting them. When we gain better control over our own awareness, when we truly understand ourselves, we become far less fragile in the face of rapidly changing world. And maybe that's a quiet wisdom behind Lu's choice after all. This film is adapted from Ted Chiang's original science fiction novella, Story of Your Life. Who is Ted Chiang? Ted Chiang is an American science fiction writer widely regarded as one of the most subtle and influential authors in contemporary sci-fi. Although he has published relatively few works, his writing has won numerous major awards, including the Hugo, Nebula, and Locus Awards, often multiple times. Chiang is known for his meticulous style and for using science fiction not to predict technology, but to explore deeply human questions: free will, time, language, responsibility, and what it means to live a meaningful life. With regard to science fiction, there is a willingness to acknowledge facts about our lives, that things are changing very rapidly, but that is still something that we actually have to live with and deal with, Chiang said. Thus, Arrival is really communicating two powerful metaphors, I think. First, all science fiction is, in some way, a metaphor for reality. That's a classic strategy. Rather than suggesting that one day we will literally learn an alien language or face the same choice as Louis, the film is closer to a thought experiment, inviting us to confront dilemmas in reality, fears in reality, pain in reality, and happiness in reality. Literally, the aliens and the language aren't the point, but hooks that push us to face questions we already struggle with in everyday life. Second, Arrival can also be read as a metaphor for children's free will. None of the children gets to decide whether they come into this world or not. This idea reminds me of Runosuke Akutagawa's short story Kappa, in which baby kappas must be asked whether they agree to be born before their parents are allowed to bring them into the world. An incredibly interesting novel that I highly recommend reading. In real life, every parent knows that their child will one day die because all life must end, and yet they still choose to bring their children into the world. The fact that something will end doesn't make it meaningless. On the contrary, it often precisely because life is finite, the love becomes so intense, so precious, and so worth embracing in the first place. Having told so many cruel truths, what on earth do I want to do? I hope if you have already recognized these truths, recognized such world building, hope you could accept all your choices from now on happily. Finally, I wrote a song with Suno AI to depict Louis' state of mind when she makes a choice after knowing the truth. Let's end this video with this song. Thank you.
I saw you drift where the stars align. Your laughter fading into time. An ocean vast, yet I still dive. I choose this pain. This love, this same, a thousand times, the same heartbreak for every tear. A spark would write to meet you there. to the sky again. I know.